My name is Jade Sterling, and for 6 years, I've kept the lights on in Chicago as a grid operations engineer. I've crawled through high-voltage substations and survived 36-hour shifts during blizzards to earn every cent of my $1,200,000 industrial penthouse. I pulled my truck into the driveway of the sleek glass tower, expecting the silence of my new sanctuary. But my heart sank at the sight of a beat-up moving van blocking my path. A worker carrying a stained polyester recliner nearly collided with my fender, and I leaned out the window to shout, "Hey, who authorized this delivery? You're blocking a private residence." He didn't even look up, just gestured toward the elevator, grunting, "The owners are upstairs. Lady, take it up with the boss in 42B. I didn't wait for the elevator. I sprinted up the stairs, my combat boots echoing against the raw concrete. When I reached my floor, the heavy oak door I had custom ordered was propped open with a bag of cheap fast food. I stepped inside and froze as the scent of greasy fries and old cigarettes hit me. "Amber, what the hell are you doing in my bathtub?" I yelled, watching my sister lounge in the $8,000 jacuzzi with a glass of my vintage wine. She barely opened one eye, smirking as she adjusted her waterproof phone mount. "Oh, Jade, don't be so dramatic. This lighting is incredible for my morning vlog. And it's not like you were using it yet." I marched into the living room, where Curtis was barking orders into a headset while feet deep in cardboard boxes. "Curtis, stop those movers right now or I'm calling the cops," I demanded, grabbing the clipboard from a worker. He scoffed, waving me off like an annoying intern. "Jade, relax. I'm in the middle of a pitch for my new crypto fund. An address like this closes deals. So just go find a corner and stay quiet." I felt the blood rushing to my ears as I turned to see my mother, Sylvia, casually hanging a faded floral portrait over my minimalist fireplace. "Mom, explain this right now. Why is there junk in my house?" I asked, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. Sylvia didn't even flinch, smoothing the frame with a practiced, maternal smile. "Jade, you're single and you work 18 hours a day. You don't need 3 bedrooms. And your family is drowning," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. I stepped back, my hand hitting the cold quartz of the kitchen island. "You stole the key I gave you for emergencies, didn't you?" I whispered, realization dawning on me. She shrugged, checking her reflection in the glass wall. "I didn't steal it. I reclaimed it for the family's future. It's $1,200,000 of space. Jade, sharing it is the only moral thing to do." I looked at their smug faces, realizing they had turned my victory into their loot. I reached into my jacket and gripped my phone, whispering, "You've made a very expensive mistake." I stood in the center of my kitchen, a silent witness to the systematic looting of my life's work. Curtis draped his cheap blazer over my Italian leather bar stool and looked at me with a sickening level of confidence. "Look, Jade, I've already designated the master suite as my primary office because the background view is essential for my investor Zoom calls," he stated, as if he were discussing a weather report. I felt the air leave my lungs, managed to choke out. "The master suite? Curtis, you don't even have a job, let alone a company that requires a $1,200,000 backdrop." He let out a condescending bark of laughter, leaning back against the counter I had paid for with 3 months of overtime. "That's where you're wrong. I'm the CEO of a digital asset firm now, and appearances are everything in the crypto world." Amber strolled out of the bathroom, still wrapped in one of my luxury towels, leaving damp footprints on the hardwood. "And I need the second bedroom for my studio. The morning light is perfect for my skincare tutorials," she added, her voice a sharp contrast to the silence I had envisioned. I blocked her path, my eyes burning with a cold fire as I said, "You're not moving into the second bedroom. Amber, you're not even staying for dinner." She rolled her eyes and sighed as if I were a petulant child. "Don't be a gatekeeper." "Jade, Mom said you'd be difficult. But honestly, what are you going to do with all this space? You're just going to spend your life at a substation anyway." Sylvia walked over, placing a hand on my shoulder that felt more like a shackle than a gesture of comfort. "Be reasonable. Jade, Amber is drowning in $80,000 of debt because she tried to make it on her own. And Curtis needs this win," she whispered, her eyes pleading with a manipulative softness. I shook her hand off and stepped back toward the glass wall. Looking out at the city, I kept powered. "So the solution is to steal my house? To take the $350,000 I saved for a down payment and treat it like a family lottery win?" Sylvia's face hardened instantly, her maternal mask slipping to reveal a sharp, jagged edge. "It's not stealing if it's family. We raised you. We paid for your braces. And now you're going to act like a stranger over some square footage?" Curtis stepped closer, his shadow falling over me as he lowered his voice to a threatening growl. "Listen carefully. Jade, if you try to kick us out, I'll tell the entire church and every relative we have that you're abusing your mother and leaving your sister on the street." I looked him dead in the eye, my face a mask of granite as I replied, "You think your reputation can survive a police report for breaking and entering?" He leaned in until I could smell the cheap coffee on his breath. "The cops won't do a thing. We have keys. We have mail being forwarded here. And we have a mother who will swear we live here. You're outnumbered." "Little sister, is that your final play?" I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous, steady frequency. Because in my world, when a system is overloaded, we don't just hope it fixes itself, we cut the power. Amber laughed, snapping a selfie in the reflection of the window. "Whatever. Jade, go cry to your blueprints. We're staying." I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped a single icon, the screen glowing with a pre-formatted message to my legal counsel. "Fine," I said, a terrifyingly calm smile spreading across my lips. "If you want to live like royalty, I hope you're ready for the fall of the empire." I turned my back on them, already hearing the gears of the legal machine beginning to grind them into dust. I walked into the kitchen and found my spare key sitting on the counter next to a half-eaten sandwich. I turned to Sylvia, my voice flat and dangerous as I asked, "How did you get this?" "Mom, I kept it inside a locked drawer in my old apartment." She didn't even look up from her phone, just sighed and said, "I took it while you were in the shower last week." "Jade, you always were too trusting for your own good. And I knew you'd never be sensible enough to offer the space yourself." I felt a cold chill settle in my chest, realizing my own mother had spent days plotting this heist while I was at work keeping the city's power running. "You've been planning this for weeks," I whispered, "even while you were congratulating me on the closing." Sylvia finally looked at me, her eyes devoid of any guilt. I had to. "Jade, Amber's debt has reached $80,000 and the collectors are calling my house now. You have more than enough. And it's time you acted like a daughter instead of a bank account." I gripped the edge of the quartz island until my knuckles turned white. "So I'm just a backup generator for their failures?" I asked, my voice rising. She stood up and pointed a finger at me, shouting, "You are a selfish, cold woman who would let her own sister drown while you sit in a $1,200,000 tower. Amber and Curtis are family, and family takes what is necessary to survive." Amber leaned against the doorframe of my guest room, smirking as she tossed her phone onto my silk duvet. "Mom's right. Jade, we already told the landlord at our old place we were moving, so we have nowhere else to go." I looked at her, then back at Sylvia. The betrayal cutting deeper than any physical wound. "You burned your bridge before even asking if you could cross mine?" I asked. Amber laughed and replied, "We didn't need to ask because Mom said this was our house too. Legally or not." I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had saved the moment Sylvia started asking too many questions about my move-in date. "Reginald." "It's Jade," I said into the receiver, ignoring the sudden silence that fell over the room. "The unauthorized entry I feared has occurred. Activate the emergency eviction protocol for 42B immediately." Sylvia rushed toward me, trying to grab the phone, screaming, "Who are you talking to? Hang up that phone right now." "Jade Sterling." I stepped back, my face a mask of absolute indifference. "I'm talking to the man who is about to turn your family survival plan into a criminal record," I said firmly. I looked at the three of them, the people who shared my blood but not my soul, and realized the Jade they knew was gone. "The grid is officially down," I told them, "and you're about to find out how dark it gets." The distant wail of sirens cut through the luxury silence of Oakwood, vibrating against the floor-to-ceiling glass. Curtis smirked, adjusting his cuffs as he looked out at the flashing blue and red lights reflecting off the river. "Looks like your neighbors are complaining about the moving truck. Jade, go handle the help while I finish this trade," he said with a dismissive wave. I stood perfectly still, my eyes fixed on the elevator doors as they chimed open to reveal 3 uniformed officers and Reginald Vance. "Actually, Curtis, they aren't here for the truck," I said, my voice cutting through the room like a high-voltage wire. Reginald stepped forward, handing a thick, notarized folder to the lead officer, while Sylvia rushed toward them with her hands clasped in a fake prayer. "Officers, thank God you're here. My daughter is having a nervous breakdown and trying to kick us out of our family home," she cried, her voice hitting a shrill, practiced pitch. The officer ignored her outstretched hand, scanning the deed and the signed affidavit Reginald provided. "Ma'am, the legal owner of this property is Jade Sterling, and she has filed a formal complaint for criminal trespass," the officer stated, his voice booming in the empty hall. Amber ran out of the bedroom, clutching a designer bag, and screamed, "This is a mistake. Our mother gave us the keys. We live here now. You can't just throw us out." The officer looked at Amber's pile of unpacked, stained boxes and then back at the legal documents. "Possession of a key does not establish a tenancy, especially when the owner has provided proof that the entry was unauthorized," he said, stepping toward Curtis. Curtis turned a sickly shade of gray, backing away from his improvised desk as he stuttered, "Wait. I'm a CEO. I have business meetings scheduled here. You're ruining my reputation." I stepped into his line of sight, my arms crossed tightly over my chest. "Your reputation died the moment you broke into my house. Curtis, now get your hands off my furniture before you leave in handcuffs," I said. Sylvia grabbed the officer's arm, her face twisting into a mask of pure desperation. "You don't understand. She's doing this to be cruel. She's $1,200,000 rich, and we have nothing," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the open floor plan. The officer firmly removed her hand and pointed toward the door. "Ma'am, if you do not begin moving these items back to the elevator immediately, I will arrest all 3 of you for trespassing and obstruction," he warned. Amber burst into hysterical tears, sobbing about how the neighbors were watching from the hallway as the movers began frantically reloading the truck. "Is this what you wanted, Jade? To humiliate us in front of everyone?" she hissed while dragging a bag of her clothes across the floor. I watched with icy detachment as they were forced to haul their cheap, floral-patterned luggage back toward the service elevator. Curtis tried to salvage a bottle of my wine, but the officer barked, "Drop it. Sir, that isn't yours." Reginald turned to me, his expression as professional as a tombstone. The temporary restraining order is now in effect. Jade, if they step foot back on this floor, it's an automatic felony, he said loudly enough for Sylvia to hear. She stopped at the threshold, her eyes burning with a hatred I had never seen before. You are no daughter of mine, she spat, her voice trembling with venom. I never was. Mom? I replied. I was just the only one in this family who knew how to pay the bills. The final box was shoved into the elevator, and the doors slid shut on their stunned, furious faces. Silence returned to the penthouse, heavy and absolute. As the officers finished their report and exited, I walked over to the quartz island and picked up the $500 bottle of wine Curtis had opened, pouring the remainder down the drain. Reginald, I want the locks changed to biometric scanners within the hour, I said, looking out at the city lights. He nodded, closing his briefcase with a sharp snap. Consider it done. Jade, the grid is secure. I leaned against the glass. Finally alone in the $1,200,000 sanctuary I had bled for, watching the red taillights of their moving truck vanish into the dark. I sat at my kitchen island the following morning, the blue glow of my laptop reflecting off the quartz as I finalized the destruction of their parasitic ecosystem. My phone buzzed incessantly with frantic calls from Sylvia, but I ignored them, focused on the 3 digital dossiers I had prepared. Reginald called me, his voice crisp through the speaker as he confirmed, the SEC tip has been officially logged against Curtis for operating an unlicensed brokerage using your private address. I watched the submission bar reach 100% and replied, Good. Let the feds explain to his investors that their CEO is currently living in a Motel 6. Curtis's empire of smoke and mirrors was the first to ignite, as his offshore accounts were flagged for investigation within hours. Next, I opened Amber's social media profile, watching a video she had just posted, crying about her cruel sister to her followers. I leaned into the microphone of my desktop and hit send on a mass email to her primary sponsors, containing her verified credit card debt of $80,000 and the police report for criminal trespass. Reginald chuckled on the other end of the line, saying, Her main skincare partner just dropped her. They have a zero-tolerance policy for criminal litigation. I refreshed my feed and saw the sponsored tags vanishing from her posts as her influencer career imploded in real time. If she wanted to be famous, I muttered, she can be famous for being a squatter. The final blow was reserved for Sylvia, who had spent decades treating me like a high-yield savings account. I opened my banking app and deleted the recurring $3,000 monthly transfer I had sent her for the last 5 years. My phone immediately erupted with a text from her. Jade. The bank says my payment was canceled. I have property taxes due. You can't do this to your mother. I typed back with steady fingers. Family is a responsibility. Mom. And I'm officially resigning from mine. Find a new bank. Reginald confirmed the service of the no-contact order, stating, She's been warned. Any further messages will result in a harassment charge. By noon, the fallout was absolute as the digital ink on their lives turned from black to red. Curtis sent a desperate voice note from a burner phone. His voice cracked and panicked. Jade, stop this. The investors are demanding their money back and the bank froze my business account because of the SEC flag. I listened to the message once, my face a mask of granite, before hitting delete without a word. He sounds stressed. I told Reginald, maybe he can find a job that doesn't involve stealing from his sister. Amber's latest post was a blurry photo of her packed car. The caption, a desperate plea for a couch to sleep on. I stood up and looked out at the Chicago skyline, feeling the immense weight of their expectations finally lift from my shoulders. The $1,200,000 sanctuary was finally silent. the air clear of their cigarette smoke and entitlement. "Is that everyone?" "Reginald?" I asked, watching the sun catch the glass of the neighboring towers. "Everyone," he replied. "They've been effectively erased from your grid." I closed the laptop, walked to the biometric scanner at the door, and locked it with a touch of my thumb. The empire had fallen. The parasites were gone. And for the first time in 32 years, I was the only one holding the keys to my life. 6 months after the locks were changed, the silence in my penthouse had transformed from an empty void into a symphony of peace. I sat by the glass wall watching the city's pulse. The same grid I spent my days maintaining, now glowing like a map of my own victory. My phone vibrated with a text from my father. His first communication in years. "Jade, I saw what happened. You've become a cold woman to treat your mother like a criminal." I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, "No. Dad, I just stopped being a victim. I hope you enjoy the silence as much as I do." Before blocking his number forever. I realized then that my $1,200,000 sanctuary wasn't just made of glass and steel. It was built on the boundaries they could no longer cross. Through distant relatives, the echoes of their ruin reached me like a fading transmission. Curtis was under federal indictment for his $200,000 crypto fraud. His CEO title replaced by a public defender's file number. Amber was working double shifts at a suburban diner. Her influencer lifestyle reduced to a memory of luxury she never earned. Sylvia had moved into a cramped studio apartment, forced to survive on her meager pension now that my $3,000 monthly tribute had vanished. I walked through my kitchen, the Italian quartz cool under my hand, knowing that not a single cent of my labor would ever again be used to fuel their delusions. My attorney, Reginald Vance, stopped by to drop off the final notarized paperwork for the permanent injunctions. He looked around the pristine living room and asked, "Does it finally feel like home?" "Jade?" I nodded, pouring 2 glasses of sparkling water, and replied, "It feels like freedom." "Reginald, the air is finally clean." He smiled, tucking the files away, and said, "You're the only person I know who fought a war just to enjoy a quiet cup of coffee." I stood alone after he left, watching the sun dip below the Chicago skyline, the golden light reflecting off my biometric scanner. I had spent my life as the backup generator, the one who stayed awake so they could sleep in the light I provided. But the grid had been redesigned, the parasitic leaks plugged, and the power was finally staying where it belonged. I am Jade Sterling, and I no longer apologize for the space I take up or the success I've earned. I leaned my forehead against the glass, breathing in the quiet of a life finally lived on my own terms. The lights were on. The house was mine. And for the first time in 32 years, the only heartbeat I had to care for was my own. Thank you for following my journey of reclaiming my life and my sanctuary. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel to support more stories of strength and justice. Your support helps me continue sharing these powerful narratives of resilience. Stay strong and keep building your own peace.